When I got the call, I was in the middle of sipping a $10 oat milk latte and browsing a list of Parisian apartments I had no intention of renting. I wasn't even planning a trip to France. I just liked knowing I could. The call came from a blocked number, which I should have known was a red flag because blocked numbers in my life only meant two things: my accountant with bad news or my mother with worse. I answered like a fool. "Hello?" A breathless voice on the other end whispered, like I was in a horror movie. "She's sick." "Who?" "Your mother," the voice clarified, as if I had more than one. I froze, not because I was worried, but because the word sick could mean anything from a common cold to a manipulative stunt. With my mother, it was always a 50-50 gamble. Still, something in me, maybe stupidity, decided to pack a carry-on, book a last-minute flight to Wisconsin, and show up like some obedient daughter in a Hallmark movie. I was raised better than this. By her. Ironically. The thing about narcissistic mothers is that they train you well. You learn how to smile with clenched teeth, how to take insults like vitamins, and how to show up, no matter how many times they tell you you're never enough. So there I was, pulling into her cracked driveway in my rented black SUV, the kind that screamed, "I've made it!" Even though the smell inside screamed, "Someone spilled an entire big gulp in here last week." Her house hadn't changed in decades. Same beige, vinyl siding, same plastic flamingos in the yard, still missing one eye. The blinds twitched when I parked, as if she had been watching from behind them all day. Of course she had. She lived for this. When I opened the front door, I expected at least a cough or a groan. Maybe a dramatic blanket draped over her shoulders, some Vicks VapoRub fumes in the air. But no. She was sitting upright on the couch, fully dressed in a salmon pink pantsuit and pearls like she was auditioning for a 1980s shampoo commercial. "You're late," she said. I wasn't. "I took the earliest flight," I replied, setting my bag down gently. "I came straight from the airport." "You look tired," she added, squinting at me. "Maybe don't wear that much eye makeup. It makes your face look harsh." And just like that, I was 9 again. The room closed in, oxygen thinning. I could hear the echoes of 1,000 insults embedded in the walls of this God-forsaken house. Each one with my name on it. "Are you even sick?" I asked, already knowing the answer. She patted her chest lightly. "Heart palpitations. The doctor said I should rest. But you know me, I keep this house going." I looked around. The place reeked of cat piss and expired ambition. "You don't have a cat," I muttered. She ignored me and got up, moving with all the fragility of a professional ballroom dancer. "You came just in time," she said sweetly. "The gutters need cleaning, and the refrigerator's making that noise. Again!" There it was. The real reason for the call. I laughed, out loud. She looked startled, probably because I hadn't laughed in front of her since I was 13. Back then, laughter was punished. I followed her into the kitchen, where the fridge was indeed humming like a dying robot. "You still don't believe in calling a repairman?" I asked. She rolled her eyes. "I have a daughter with 2 degrees and a 6-figure salary. Why would I waste money on some stranger?" That's what I was here for. Not care, not concern. Labor. "I'm not a refrigerator technician, Mom." "Don't be dramatic," she snapped. "It's just a little noise. You always were overly sensitive." She said that a lot. "You're too emotional, too sensitive, too much." But what she really meant was, stop noticing what I do to you. I stood by the cracked linoleum and stared at her. This woman who birthed me but never actually liked me. Not really. She liked what I represented. She liked that she could brag about me to her church friends, that she could claim my accomplishments as hers. My daughter is a marketing director in New York, she would say, forgetting to mention that I hadn't called her in 3 months, because the last time we spoke, she told me I was a narcissist for not visiting her on Mother's Day. Projection. She wore it like Chanel No. 5. You know, I said, tilting my head, I have a life, a real one. Out there, a boyfriend, a job, a mortgage. She sat at the table and reached for her ancient sugar bowl. You make it sound like I don't, she said. You don't, Mom. You live alone. You complain about your neighbors. You pick fights at the pharmacy. You bait me with health scares so I'll come here and fix your appliances. Her lips twitched. Not in guilt. In amusement. Someone has to teach you humility. I stepped back, stunned. Humility? Yes, she said, sipping her tea. You walk around like you're so much better than everyone. Like you forgot where you came from. I hadn't forgotten. That was the problem. I remembered every slammed door, every comparison to other girls. Every time she called me fat, dramatic, selfish. Every time she told me that I would be nothing without her. And now that I was something, she hated me for it. Maybe I have changed, I said softly. Maybe I finally grew out of believing your lies. She laughed, that brittle laugh that sounded like glass shattering. You're so dramatic, always rewriting history. Do you know how many sacrifices I made for you? Yes, I knew. She reminded me every chance she got. I gave up my dreams, she continued. I could have been a singer, a real one, not some mother wiping snot off a brat's nose. Then why did you have me? She paused. A real pause. And then she looked at me like I was some stranger who had just wandered in. Because I thought you'd love me. There it was. The real sickness. Not heart palpitations, not loneliness, not the broken refrigerator. Her illness was deeper, older, and incurable. I do love you, I said, but not the way you want. She stood suddenly. I need to lie down. You've upset me. I watched her shuffle to her bedroom like some kind of matriarchal ghost. The house fell silent, and I stood there, surrounded by wallpaper I once tried to peel off with my bare hands when I was 10, hoping there was another life underneath it. There wasn't. I stayed for 2 more days, fixed the fridge, cleaned the gutters, bought her groceries, smiled through the passive-aggressive jabs. You've gained weight, she noted at breakfast. Your hair looks dry. Why don't you wear brighter colors? You're so severe. I didn't respond. Just nodded, smiled, took notes. Because I had a plan, and she had no idea what was coming. After 3 days in that haunted mausoleum she called a home, I was ready to book a one-way flight to anywhere that didn't smell like Bengay and unresolved childhood trauma. But I stayed. Why? Because if you've ever been raised by a narcissist, you know this. The best revenge is not loud. It's patient, strategic, silent. And I was done being her punching bag. I was done forgiving. Done fixing things she broke just so she could watch me clean up. This time, I'd collect the mess, and I'd show it to the world. It started small. On day 4, I told her I wanted to go through some of the old boxes in the attic. She narrowed, her eyes like I'd asked to excavate her grave. "Why?" she snapped. "Just nostalgia," I said sweetly. "Maybe I'll find my old yearbooks. Or that violin you made me sell so you could buy Botox." She gave me a tight smile. "You're still bitter about that?" "No," I lied. "I just like remembering who I used to be." She didn't stop me. "Narcissists never do when they think you're romanticizing the past. They think they were the star of it. They forget they were the villain." Up in the attic, dust hung in the air like regret. The place was a hoarder's dream. Boxes labeled with years, some stained with what I hoped was coffee. I opened one from 1998 and found dozens of letters my father had written before he left us. Letters she never sent. Letters she told me he refused to write. She begged him to stay, she had always said. "No one begged," the letters now screamed. He asked about me, wrote how sorry he was, said he tried calling, said my mother had blocked him every time. I took photos, all of them, every page. Evidence. In the next box, report cards. Every A circled, every B+ scratched and labeled with her handwriting in red ink. Disappointing. Even in second grade, I wasn't allowed to be human. More photos. In another box, cassette tapes. One labeled Therapy 2003. I remembered this. It was the year she forced me to go to counseling, not because I needed help, but because I had started standing up to her. She wanted a diagnosis, something to prove that I was the broken one. She taped our sessions, probably hoping to catch me saying something incriminating. I took the cassettes too. Later, I found a converter online. What I heard was gold. A 12-year-old version of myself saying, in a tiny, exhausted voice, "My mom says I make her life harder just by existing." And the therapist replying, "That's not love. That's abuse." More evidence. I didn't confront her. Not yet. That wasn't the point. The point was, build the case, brick by brick, until the whole facade collapsed under its own delusions. Meanwhile, she kept poking, testing, seeing if she still had power. "You know, your cousin Marla is engaged," she said one afternoon while stirring instant coffee like it owed her money. "Good for Marla," I said. "Her fiancé is a dentist. Handsome, tall, clean, not like those writers you date." Writers. That's what she called anyone who had a passion. I nodded slowly. "You know, I'm dating someone new. His name's Calvin. He's a prosecutor." She froze. "A lawyer?" "Yeah. Government job. Investigates white-collar crimes. The kind of guy who loves paperwork." Her eyes flickered. For the first time, I saw something break. A flicker of fear. Then she covered it with a smile. "Finally," she said. "Someone respectable." She had no idea Calvin didn't exist. Not yet, anyway. The next day, I found the real jackpot, tucked in a locked drawer in her bedroom dresser. Yes, I picked the lock, thanks to a very informative YouTube tutorial. I found her old journal. She kept one. Of course she did. People like her love the sound of their own thoughts. It was dated, detailed, disturbing. Pages and pages of rants. About me. About my father. About friends she had manipulated. Enemies she had created. One entry read, "Told the school counselor she was stealing. It was the only way to get them to stop praising her. Her head was getting too big." Another said, Sometimes I wish I never had her. She's so ungrateful. And the worst, it's fun to see her cry. Makes me feel like she still needs me. I didn't cry reading it. I laughed. A real one this time. Sharp, cold, liberating. Because now I wasn't her victim. I was the author. And this story, it was about to change genres. That evening I asked her to dinner. "Why so fancy?" she said, eyeing my black dress as I came down the stairs. "To celebrate," I said. "Celebrate what?" "Closure." She blinked. Then smiled. We went to her favorite overpriced restaurant, where she insisted on telling the waiter that I was finally dating a lawyer and that she always knew I'd stop wasting time on artsy boys. I smiled. Ordered wine. Let her feel powerful one last time. At the end of the night, I paid the bill. "Since you're retired," I said sweetly, "and living off that disability claim." She flinched. Barely. But I saw it. Back at the house, I packed my things. "Leaving. Already?" she asked from the top of the stairs. "I thought you might stay another week." "No," I said, slinging my bag over my shoulder. "Calvin wants me back in the city. He says things are getting messy." Her face twitched. "Messy?" "Yeah," I said, opening the door. "But don't worry. You always said I was good at cleaning up." And I left. But the story wasn't over. It was just beginning. Back in New York, I got to work. Remember those letters from my dad? I tracked him down. Thanks to a mutual connection from high school and a very enthusiastic Facebook group for children of estranged fathers. He was in Arizona now. Retired. Remarried. Kind eyes. We spoke for hours. He cried. Apologized. I listened. I told him about the letters, the tapes, the journal. He went silent. Then said something I didn't expect. "I want people to know what she did." So I told him I had a plan. I wasn't going to post some long-winded revenge rant online. I wasn't going to yell or expose her on Facebook like a teenager after prom. No. I was going to do something she never expected. I was going to turn her into a character. I started writing. A memoir. But fictionalized, of course. Names changed. Just enough to avoid lawsuits, but not enough to hide her completely. I titled it, The Sick House, Raised by a Narcissist. Each chapter, a real moment. A real wound. Dressed up in prose and metaphor, but underneath it, raw truth. I included the quotes from her journal, the tapes, the letters, my therapy notes. I didn't hold back. And here's the thing about trauma. When you wrap it in narrative, it becomes digestible. People read it, share it, cry over it. 3 months after publishing it independently, it went viral. A book club picked it up, then a podcast. Then a Netflix producer emailed me at 3 a.m. with the subject line, "Have you sold the rights yet?" I hadn't. I sold them the next morning. And just like that, her story, the one she spent her life controlling, was no longer hers. But I wasn't finished, because my mother loved her image, her reputation, her little Wisconsin community where she was still seen as the elegant widow with a brilliant daughter. So I sent her a signed copy. First edition, wrapped in gold ribbon, with a note. "To the woman who made me strong, thank you for the material. The day the Netflix trailer dropped, I was sipping a dirty martini on my balcony, wearing a silk robe I bought just to feel expensive while watching my childhood implode in 4K. The show was titled The Sick House. Tagline: What happens when the mother who gave you life spends it trying to take it back? It trended within hours. Critics called it haunting, visceral, disturbingly familiar. The narcissist mothers of America called it defamatory nonsense. Guess which group my mom belonged to. She found out fast. Faster than I expected. I hadn't blocked her number, yet, because I wanted to hear the scream echoing through the phone line. It came at exactly 9:47 a.m. I watched the name flash across my screen. Mother, original, just like her personality. I picked up. Slowly, deliberately. Hello? Her voice was shaking but sharp, like a knife trying to pretend it's a spoon. What did you do? Oh, hi. Did you get the book I sent? I said sweetly. I hope the ribbon wasn't too much. You wrote a goddamn TV show about me? No, I wrote a book. The TV show was someone else's interpretation. Isn't it funny how stories evolve when more people hear them? She was breathing hard. I imagined her pacing her pristine kitchen, surrounded by decorative plates she never used and lies she told so often they became wallpaper. You humiliated me. I took a sip of my drink. No, I said calmly. You did that all by yourself. I just turned the lights on. She switched tactics, because narcissists always do when rage doesn't work. You're exaggerating. You always were dramatic. That's how you get attention. Nothing in that book was real. I smiled. Oh? So those weren't your words in the journal? That wasn't your handwriting? You didn't lie about Dad abandoning me? Or tell the school I was a thief at 10 years old? Silence. Then she went low. Her specialty. You'll regret this. You think this is success? People will see through you. You're still that desperate little girl who needed her mother to love her. I let the words hang in the air like smoke. Then I said the one thing I knew would cut through her better than a blade. No, Mom. I don't need your love anymore. I've got something better. What? She sneered. An audience. And I hung up. 3 weeks later, she went public. She gave an exclusive interview to a second-rate morning show hosted by a man whose claim to fame was once spilling coffee on Oprah. She sat there in pearls and fake tears talking about her ungrateful daughter and how fiction is a dangerous thing when you give it to a damaged mind. They ran it. Of course they did. Trauma cells. So does denial. But here's the thing. For every person who saw her crocodile tears and thought, poor woman, there were 1,000 others who knew. They knew that voice, that manipulative cadence, that carefully curated sadness. My inbox flooded. Messages from strangers who saw their own mothers in mine. One said, "Thank you. I thought I was alone." Another said, "Your story gave me the courage to go no contact." That one, I printed and framed it. Because that was the real revenge. Not fame, not money, not the streaming deal or the book sales. It was freedom. It was seeing other people break the chains that once choked me. But, oh, we're not done yet. Because you wanted vengeance, didn't you? You want the real twist, the finale, the cherry on the toxic sundae. Here it is. A month after the show premiered, I got a call from a lawyer. Not mine. Hers, he informed me. with all the slick politeness of a man who'd never had to survive a narcissistic mother, that she was suing me. Defamation, emotional distress, loss of social standing. I laughed so hard I dropped my wine glass. "Tell her I said thank you," I said. He paused. "Excuse me? She just gave me season 2. See? Narcissists never understand the power of receipts. They think everyone forgets. That reality is just something they can edit and post. But I had everything. Dated, documented, digital to emails, handwritten notes, audio, witnesses, and a publisher with a legal team that foamed at the mouth when threatened with lawsuits. They loved court. Because court meant discovery. Discovery meant everything became public record. You think she wanted the world to see her therapy tapes? Her journals? You think she wanted to explain the fake disability claim she'd been collecting on for a decade? She dropped the suit within a week, but the damage was done, to her, because local reporters caught wind. Turns out, people love a downfall, especially of someone who's built their entire persona around being a victim. Neighbors started whispering. Church ladies stopped calling. Even her precious cousin Marla unfollowed her on Instagram. The queen of perception had lost her crown and, the final blow? The IRS. Turns out someone, not me of course, sent in an anonymous tip about her undeclared inheritance money and that suspicious trust fund she'd been funneling through medical expenses. Audit launched, assets frozen, reputation shattered, and me? I was on a book tour in Europe, drinking champagne with strangers who knew me only as the woman who survived a haunted house made of gaslighting and guilt. I haven't spoken to her since. Last I heard, she moved to a smaller place. Sold off half her furniture. Started telling people she had a deranged daughter who joined a cult. Sure, Mom. Whatever helps you sleep. As for me, I sleep great now. No more waking up with guilt sweat. No more editing myself for approval I was never going to get. No more calling someone Mom just because biology said I should. I reclaimed my life, rewrote the script, burned the old ending, and carved out a better one. With my words, with my truth, with silence that says, I'm done playing your mirror. So, if you're listening to this, and you've got a mother who wears cruelty like perfume, who breaks you and calls it love, who needs you to stay small so she can feel big, let me say this loud and clear. You are not crazy. You are not ungrateful, and you are not alone. You don't have to keep setting yourself on fire to keep her warm. Walk away, light your own path, write your own ending, and when she comes looking for someone to blame, smile and say, I told my story. You just didn't like the role you played.